Audacity in 3, 2, 1.
Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Barbell Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Christina Lynn, and I'm here with my co-host, Marissa Roy. And in today's episode, we're going to chat all about alcohol.
Yep. And I think it's good timing for this, just for myself, because we have a potentially alcohol ridden weekend ahead, but just with the time of the year, we just passed Memorial Day weekend. And that's a big drinking holiday for many, with just barbecues and everything. But, summertime is a lot of time out in the sun, drinking with friends, all of that. And so I think the theme of at least like a lot of stuff I've been saying on social media lately, if you follow me, is how like a lot of people kind of put off their goals for the summer because they just think they can't achieve them. Did you see that post by Casey Joe?
Yes.
It was so good. But basically it said a lot of people are like, I want to start being healthy, but I'll wait until after summer because they think that it's not possible to make changes during the summertime and still enjoy your life. And so we're going to debunk that, and we're going to show you today how you can drink alcohol. And if your goal is to lose weight or fat, you can still do that, or build muscle, or whatever it is you think alcohol is holding you back from.
Yeah, which I think is a good topic because I just came back from lunch at a winery and had a glass of wine.
Oh, nice.
And I'm in a fat loss phase, sort of. I mean, not a true fat loss phase, but my goal is to lose weight still postpartum. But I'm not restricting alcohol. So I think it's, kind of a good topic to chat about today.
Yeah. So, I think basically the first thing that we want to debunk here is just what really is going on with alcohol that maybe gives it a bad rep, or what are the facts about alcohol. So I think a lot of people just kind of slap a label on it as, if I want to be fit, then I can't drink. And there's this stigma that it's just like, that's just the way it is. And if you want to lose weight or you want to do this, you just have to stop drinking. And it prevents a lot of people from starting to work on their goals. And it's really sad because obviously, like, that is really, really important to work into your diet if it's something you enjoy. So I think the first thing is to just kind of maybe go into the whole science of alcohol, what it actually is, what it does with your body. Would you say that's probably the next logical step?
Yeah, I was gonna take it too from like it's the same thing when we talk about, I'm gonna start a diet. So people are like, oh, I'm gonna cut out sugar and alcohol, and it leads to craving those foods or those beverages more and more. And eventually you just kind of say, well, fuck it, I can't do it anymore. Like I don't want to diet because this sucks. So I feel like that's where a lot of people kind of miss the mark, and they have this all or nothing mentality when it comes to quote unquote good food or bad food. And then the same thing with alcohol. They either like, I can't have it at all, or like, I'm just not going to diet because I want to drink. So that's kind of where my mind goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And just kind of like how alcohol functions in the body, because I think that's important context to know to like really get into everything else we're going to talk about today. Would be, so alcohol is technically not a macronutrient, not one of the main macronutrients, sorry. It is the fourth macronutrient actually, but nobody really talks about it as such. They just talk about it as alcohol, and a lot of people I think alcohol is carbs, because of how it's often marketed, but it's actually a separate macronutrient. From what I've heard, and like, don't quote me on this, but from what I've heard, it behaves in such a way that almost is like a hybrid between a carb and a fat like molecule in digestion, but it's also a toxin, right? And so alcohol is its own separate macronutrient. It's 7 calories per gram. So it is a little bit denser, right? It's a little bit more than carbs or protein that are 4 calories per gram, but not so much as fat. But it is also a toxin, meaning that when it goes into your body's immediately going to turn to digest alcohol before anything else mode. And we'll talk about the implications of that, why that's important. But your body basically just tries to digest it and get rid of it first, even if there's other stuff in your system. So that's kind of what it is, how it breaks down. And then we can probably get into how that creates more myths around alcohol and reaching your goals.
Yeah. So I feel like oftentimes the term that you hear with alcohol is like it's empty calories. So I think that's another good thing to kind of talk about and why that is. So, if someone is in a fat loss phase, and again, this is not a great example, but just for the purposes of this podcast, if someone is only intaking 100 grams of carbs, and that is their allowance for the day. And if they decide to have 2 or 3 drinks, that could be, half to almost like a majority portion of their carbs, if that's how they want to track it for the entire day. And so that's kind of where the term empty calories comes from, because there's also like nothing nutrient dense about alcohol. You don't get anything from it. Like Marissa was saying, it's a toxin. So you don't get any like vitamins, minerals. You don't get any true quote unquote macros from like carbs, fats, or proteins. So it doesn't really do anything for you or your system.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there are health benefits to like certain wines and like whiskeys and stuff. Like a lot of like, I guess like wives' tales will say like some of the healthiest people have that as a part of their regimen and all that. I think there's probably some truth to that, just from a stress perspective. Like alcohol loosens you up, like it
Yeah.
relieves stress, but
Yeah. I mean, it's like, again, what they said is like it's supposed to have like antioxidants, like red wine at least. But
yeah.
I've also seen some studies that recently have like kind of debunked that. So
Oh
they don't
yeah.
know if it's actually like the antioxidant or if there's some other positive effect from alcohol. But again, it's in a very like it's like a moderated
Oh
amount,
yeah.
like
It's like
not
a
like
4 ounce glass of wine a night, or like one like 2 finger pour of like whiskey or bourbon
yeah.
every night or whatever, or a shot even. Yeah, no, I'm definitely not here to just be like, yes, drink alcohol every single day. But like, I think, there are benefits outside of like, if we don't want to just view it as like, okay, it's calories and it's nothing else and it has no
Right,
value, right?
right,
So
right.
ultimately it can relieve stress and tension in the body and in the mind. I wouldn't say it's the best coping mechanism, but it's definitely like that is an effect of it. I'm definitely probably could use that more than I take advantage of it. But yeah, so basically, when we're talking about, I guess when I said how alcohol is a toxin and it's digested first, just kind of how that leads into when people talk about losing fat or building muscle, how this creates misconceptions around alcohol kills your gains, or you can't build muscle if you drink, or you can't lose fat if you drink, or whatever it is. Because basically, if you think about it, one of the reasons that people who do drink a lot or drink regularly, or maybe engage in binge drinking behaviors, don't lose weight or maybe gain weight or have unfavorable body compositions for themselves, is because if you think about, maybe you've eaten a full day's worth of food and your body's digesting it, but then if you have drinks on top of it, your body's going to shift to it's alcohol burning mode. Like, I'm not going to touch this food. I'm not going to digest this food as much, or, break it down or burn the calories from it until I've gotten rid of this alcohol, because it's a poison. Like, it's literally, I got to get rid of it. That's your body's response. And so what that does is, maybe you're out partying or you're out expending energy in whatever way you're expending energy with alcohol in your system, your energy is coming from that. And then what happens when that's done is the leftover food that hasn't been, burned off, or however you want to phrase it, is excess, right? So you've been basically put into, in a lot of cases, a calorie surplus. And that is why oftentimes people say you can't lose fat if you drink. It's more so you're probably in an overall calorie surplus, and you need to manage that. And usually that means moderating alcohol before food. Not always, like Christina's example, but we wouldn't say that's the smartest way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, and it's the idea that like, it's so easy to drink your calories. Like it's so easy to just have 2, 3, glasses of wine or whatever you happen to be drinking. And if you're drinking something, and we'll get into this, if you're drinking like a cranberry vodka, but with like full cranberry juice, like it's super easy to pound like hundreds of calories worth of drinks, and it doesn't feel like you're eating like hundreds of
Yeah.
calories. So it's really, really easy to like over consume and to go way over into a calorie surplus.
Yeah, it's not going to make you feel full really at all. So,
Like the same way it would if you were to have eaten those same amount of calories.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So that's where it can be, quote unquote dangerous. But that doesn't mean you have to fear alcohol and write it off. What were you going to say?
Oh, the other thing I was going to say is when you are under the influence, it's also really easy to no longer have that filter into overeat. Let's say, like if you have the munchies or whatever it is. So you are like, you have that factor on top of things too. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, like,
I would say that's like the number one thing that hinders people in their goals is the decisions they make after the
yeah,
drinking. Like it might not even be, maybe, I've had a lot of cases where maybe I've got like a petite female who's super lightweight. It only takes her like 3 or 4 shots to just get in her groove, right? So she's out, she's having fun. She's hasn't had that much alcohol, right? Like that only might be 200, 300 total calories of whatever it is. Depending on how heavy those shots were poured, of course. But so maybe she's not over her calories, right? But what does put her over is the late night food runs to fast food or whatever it is, because it's the only thing that's open and you have cravings, you're hungry, you're tired, and willpower is super low for a number of reasons. One of those being under the influence. So I would say that often sets people back with their goals way more than the alcohol itself in a lot of cases.
yeah. And if most of you are in my generation, you know that hangovers are way, 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 way worse nowadays. It's not like when you're in college where you could drink and then just like go to the gym and run errands and do homework and then do it again the next night or that very night. Like hangovers last like 2 or 3 days. So for some people, if you're going out and you're partying and you are under the influence and you feel the effects the next day, you are less likely to be active. You're less likely to eat healthy. You're probably going to skip the gym. And so if you're doing that like every single weekend, like all of those effects really add up, and think about how many like gym sessions you miss out on. So that's another factor as well.
Yeah, that's huge. Especially because when the next day, I think it's really common that a lot of times people will try to soak up the alcohol with
Like
greasy food the next morning.
pancakes and burgers, or like hair of the dog, where you like start drinking again to like try to get rid of how shitty you're feeling.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there are a lot of like behavior, I guess, I don't know, modifications or things that happen afterwards.
Yeah, that definitely probably set people back even more. So all context considered, it's probably not just having the one beer that's setting you back and killing your gains. It's all the other stuff. So,
Yeah.
so basically, do you want to start us off just breaking down how we can drink and still lose weight and kind of how to track that?
Yeah, I was going to add in one more thing, something that I remembered when you were here with us. And oops, my video stopped. But when you were here and we lifted in my garage, or we lifted at the gym, I can't remember, but we did a
Oh,
leg
yeah.
day.
Yeah.
And we had a beer afterwards, and you probably only had one, maybe two. But like if you work out and you have alcohol, it slows down the recovery process. And that can be another factor too, if you're not properly allowing yourself to recover from workouts because you're constantly drinking.
Yeah. Did you drop something?
Yeah, my ring light fell.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, super fun. I don't know where it went, but for some reason it kicked off my oh, I don't know why it's doing that, but we're back in business.
Cool. So I'm assuming Shane will cut that part out, but so you want to start with tracking macros, or do you want to start with maybe non-tracking versions?
I mean, so we can talk maybe like non-tracking. So like if you are someone who doesn't track your macros, but is maybe just conscious and aware, and maybe you're kind of like intuitively eating, obviously I think the first thing to do is just kind of like drink in moderation. And I feel like that's kind of a blanket statement, and like maybe what does that look like? But the other thing too is to consider like your own behaviors. And I think that's really, really important, because there are things that you might be able to do that may not like really help anyone else. But like, let's say you have 10 beers a week. And so if you wanted to make a change, like maybe have 8, and then, a couple of weeks later, maybe have 6, and then, a couple of weeks later, maybe go down to 4, and then 2. And maybe that's really all you have, or like you're drinking instead of 3 nights, maybe only drink 2 nights, and then you go down to maybe 1. So just kind of being able to like reduce your intake. And one of the things that I am currently doing is I am like loosely tracking. And so sometimes I'll track, and like, or other ways I'll just like be more aware of like my protein intake, since that's something I need to be conscious of. And I think for me, because I'm postpartum, like I was really excited to have the opportunity to drink again. So anytime I did, I would take it, even though I can't drink a whole lot because I'm still breastfeeding. So it's not like I can turn up. But I'd have like a small glass of wine, like, or like a little bit of a beer. But I was like, you know what, now that I've kind of like gotten that kind of out of my system, I'm like, I'm going to go back to what I was doing before and just drink on the weekends. Like, and so I am going to reduce my intake from alcohol, because instead of drinking, 5 or 6 nights a week, I'm going to drink 2 or 3. So just like small little changes like that can add up and make a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing, is like kind of looking at your behavior from a bird's eye view, and then being able to modify from that, because it can be really hard to say what your goal needs to be if you are just thinking about, a lot of times, and I've noticed a lot of people, if you ask them, how is X, Y, and Z going? Your diet, moderating alcohol, whatever it is, your training, life. People will literally think about the past 24, maybe 48 hours, and they'll answer based on that, not the overall, like, just bird's eye view. So unless they have been specifically trained to think that way. And so if you ask someone, how is, moderating your alcohol going? They're probably going to say to you, well, pretty good. I only had 2 beers last night. Or, oh, pretty terrible. I had like 10 beers last night. But if we zoom out and we look at the whole week, did they have 2 beers the past 7 nights and had 14 drinks total, versus 10 beers last night and only 10 drinks total for the week? Like, that's actually, guess which one's better, right? In terms of trying to moderate it. So I think it's just a matter of being able to look at your context and finding a way to actually zoom out and have that analysis with yourself. It could just literally be like a tally count of like how many drinks you have, and a little note in your phone to just get some perspective, right? And you can make it a game for yourself. Like maybe one week you write down every time you have a drink. You don't even have to write down what the drinks are, but just like drink 1, drink 2, drink 3 on Monday, whatever, total it up for the week, and then play a game. Next week, try to go down by 1 or 2. And the other thing I will say is, in order to reach your goals, this is not a game to 0. This is a game to a number that you are A, making progress with, and B, feel good about in terms of your behavior, your choices, and your lifestyle. So the question that you need to ask yourself when you're thinking about moderating your alcohol intake is, what does your ideal intake and balance look like for you, right? It's going to be super different for every single person. So actually be able to think about, what am I working towards? Because it's not 0 for most people. Like 99% of people, maybe 98% of people, it's not going to be 0. We might be working down to 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 drinks per week. And that's a huge improvement for a lot of people. So I think figure out what your target actually is, work backwards from there, and almost make it a game with yourself. And then the other thing you can do is just reducing the actual amount of calories that you're having within each drink. So we've got
That's
a
where I
whole,
was
yeah,
next. Yeah.
we've got a whole list of swaps here, but just something to keep in mind: what you're drinking, makes a difference in terms of how many total calories you're consuming. Because at the end of the day, that's what's going to drive your weight loss or your weight gain, is the total amount of calories. So you might be drinking one, let's say Jack and Coke. If you swap that to Jack and Diet, you might be saving 200 calories worth of soda and still getting the same amount of alcohol and basically the same flavor. Maybe it's a little bit dampened, right? But those are things that you can do that will overall enhance, first and foremost, hopefully your hangovers next day, because sugar plus alcohol is usually not a good mix.
Oh, no.
So if you eliminate that, your hangovers will be better. And then also total calories, which is going to drive your actual fitness and body composition results more than even the alcohol alone, the total calories.
Yeah. So I think I'm glad that you went in that direction, because that's exactly what I was thinking. But same thing, kind of like when we're talking about moderating drinks. So maybe the first thing you do is not even reduce the amount that you're taking in, but just like a simple swap, like Marissa was saying, like going from regular soda, like diet, or going from a regular juice to diet juice, or like, instead of full whatever, you do like some flavoring, whatever it might be. Like that could be a super easy way, and like you don't even have to reduce the amount that you're drinking, just make some super simple swaps and then kind of see what happens. But yeah, I guess what we can go into, like, let's say like bare bones, right? Like what is what you can drink and it has the least amount of anything in it. So shots are one of the easiest things that you can do. There's no fillers, there's nothing else, it's just the alcohol. And I believe tequila is the kind of quote unquote best, like for drinking, like, or for like calories.
Yeah. I don't know about for calories, but definitely for like hangovers and stuff. I'm not sure about density, but there's actually somebody told Aaron, and Aaron's been like latching onto this lately. So he'll like try to only have tequila when he goes out. But there was a guy that we met that said something about, because of how tequila is sourced, it like either doesn't cause hangovers, or I can't remember, but because it's like sourced from agave or something like that. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a specific type of tequila. But anyways, this guy only drank tequila, and he just swore by the fact that he never got hangovers no matter how much he drank. So that was cool.
That has not been my experience with tequila, but yeah, I think that tequila, or maybe like vodka, is like
Yeah.
the best. Like typically clear liquors are a little bit like quote unquote like more calorically friendly compared to like a Mai Tai or a Long Island, or like a mixed drink. So just sticking with pure, I guess, alcohol. So like a glass of wine, a shot, and then also beer. So it's like not mixed with anything else. That's kind of like the bare bones. This is going to be the best option. So that, and then if you mix it with like anything diet, like you're not adding anything, any other calories to it.
Yeah. Usually a shot will be anywhere from like 60 to 80 calories, depending on how heavy the hand is. But a couple ideas for you guys with that could be a vodka club soda. Personally, I add extra lime and or lemon when I do that, because I'm like trying to add some flavor to it. You could do, like we said, like whiskey and Coke Zero or Diet Coke. You could do, if you really need it, Diet Red Bull and vodka. That's a fun one if you're really trying to party. And then seltzers are huge because most of them now are about 100 calories, 90 to 100 calories each, and they have like a decent percentage of alcohol. And one thing I will say about that, as well as beers and like basically anything canned that is marketed, they will put on the label like 2 carbs or 0 carbs or whatever it is. That does not mean that it's a 0 calorie drink. You'll notice that the calories on the drink will say 100 or however many, and then the carbs will be like 2. So a lot of people, if they're tracking their food, they might like scan that and be like, oh sweet, 2, I could have 100 of these and hit my carb goal, right? That's not the case. And we'll explain why in the tracking sort of section of this, but just something to be wary of with things that are marketed of like low carb, 0 carb, like it's the calories. They still count, and that's what's going to put you over. So don't go into the mindset of, oh, seltzers are nothing, I can have as many as I want. You still want to moderate it the same way you would moderate other types of alcohol.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like there are just so many different mixers that you can do that are like kind of considered like the zero cal, or so like they make like skinny margarita mixes, Skinny Girl. They
Oh
actually
yeah,
have
those
a
are
line
great.
of things. Now I think so too. And it's really funny. So for Cinco de Mayo, my mom was here and she bought two different kinds of margarita mix. She bought the traditional like skinny margarita, and then she bought like a strawberry margarita mix. And I had a sip of her strawberry one and I was like, oh my God. And I was so sugary. And so I can't even do the full sugar ones. I'm just so used to the diet ones. I like that they're kind of like muddled a little bit. But I was gonna say, so I've seen this when I have back in my day when I'd go out to bars, not anymore. But girls will bring like little Mio.
Yeah.
Like containers, and they'll do like you said, like the vodka sodas or whatever, and then just or like
Oh,
seltzer,
that's
and just
smart.
yeah, because it's really little, right? Like it's just this little bit of flavoring that you get to add to your drinks. And if you're going to be drinking and going out, like again, like we talk about how things just compound over time. So like that's a super easy way to save calories and make your drink taste good.
Oh my God. Because yeah, that's something I suggest all the time is like, if you're drinking at home, get like Crystal Light packets and like make
Yeah.
whatever drink you want to make with like those instead of like actual, say, lemonade or sweet tea if you're doing like a
Hmm.
Long Island, and use the zero cal. But that's the Mio is perfect because it fits in your purse, and it's like literally they're in every single freaking flavor now.
Yeah.
That is so, yeah, that's awesome. I might have to
And
grab one for this upcoming
if you have
weekend.
those like little individual like Crystal Light, you're not having to like open it up and pour like the thing in and get powder all over your
Shake it.
purse. Yeah,
Yeah.
like or you stir it up. So just like a little like the little liquid flavorings, and you just stick it right back in your purse.
That's
So
so
yeah, so
good.
I've seen that. I've also seen people mix like BCAs. So my husband will do that. He'll do BCAs and alcohol.
Oh yeah, I've done that before. It's kind of like
Yeah.
counteract each other, but
Yeah. So just some really easy things that you can do. And like I feel like you like maybe you're like, oh yeah, like I've seen these like Instagram infographics of like easy swaps, but like it really, really adds up over the long period. Like Marissa was saying, if you're able to zoom out and just make a super easy switch, like it's a possibility that you don't even have to reduce your alcohol intake. You just make this super switch and you find a new drink that works for you and you make progress.
the super switch.
Super easy switch, yeah. So yeah, so I guess that's kind of my, or I guess our examples for like if you're like intuitively tracking, and those are just some super simple switches that you can make right now.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of that just falls on behavior and like really making those behavioral changes, and just everything we preach, right? Like it's not about going from 100 to 0, but it's about like actually taking the time to understand what your behavior looks like, and then taking it one step at a time up the ladder from there. Then you'll get to where you want to be, right? But you also need to know where you're going. So make sure you know where you're going, what your target is in terms of your ideal lifestyle, including alcohol. And then you have the full picture of how to get from point A to point B. But if you are, say, doing a dedicated macro tracking phase, or utilizing numbers and data to drive your decisions, we can also teach you how to do that.
Yeah. So like Marissa was saying, labels can be very, very misleading. And so we typically do not track alcohol with the 7 grams. What we tend to do is, I guess, for just super easy purposes, let's just say that again, the label says 2 grams of carbs, but the calories are 100 grams. So there are just really like a bunch of combinations that you can do to track your alcohol. But let's say you want to track just carbs, because typically most people have the most flexibility when it comes to that micronutrient. So if you take 100 and you divide it by 4 calories, you get 25 grams of carbs. So that's one single drink is 25 grams of carbs, and that's a really easy one to do. Or let's say you want to, if you're maybe, let's say keto and you have a lot of fat to play with, you could take 100 and you divide it by 9, and that comes out to 11.11 grams of fat that you can allocate towards alcohol. Or you could do a combination. You could say, well, I have a little bit, like maybe for whatever reason, you don't have a lot of carbs left, but you have some, and then you have more fat left, or vice versa. You can do a combination. That's when it gets a little trickier. And you have to do a lot of math, but typically people stick with carbs or fats, and it's super easy to do it that way.
Yeah. And I do that one all the time when I am tracking and drinking, which hasn't happened in a very long time, but 5.5 grams of fat and 12.5 grams of carbs for quick reference. I always use that one because I hate giving up big chunks of things. If I'm gonna have 2 drinks, then I'll just do, the total of half and half for both, which would be like 1 drink for fat, 1 drink for carbs. That makes me feel better about my choices than just not having carbs for the day. Feel sad.
Yeah, so that's a really just super simple way to track your alcohol. So and then the other thing that gets kind of tricky, and I think this happens for most people, is like, let's say you're not drinking from a can. Like, let's say you're not drinking a seltzer. How do you do that? So, let's say you're having a glass of wine. So if you go into MyFitnessPal and you type in like Cab or whatever it is, Merlot, and sometimes it'll do the same thing. It'll be like 2 grams of carbs, and it'll be like 130 calories. So do the same thing: 130 divide by 4 divide by 9, whatever it happen is, combination of things. I feel like it's tricky when you're out at like a restaurant and you don't really know what they're putting into their drinks, or like, how do you track that? So maybe we can give some easy ways that you can order and kind of save some calories and like know how to track.
Yeah. I mean, I would say like that's hard because if you look up, for example, like Long Island iced tea, you might get some answers, right? You might get some like, it's 400 calories for 24 ounces or something. And maybe you could just use that, right? Maybe you could just divide that into your fats and carbs and just call it a day, right? But I would say like a lot of the simple swaps that we listed, they're usually always available at any restaurant with a bar. So like, don't be afraid to order off of whatever's on the drink menu. Like if they have a cocktail list, like you can still customize stuff, as well as like a lot of like typical drinks, like say an old fashioned, like a lot of places will still make that even if it's not on the menu. But what I'll also say is you can kind of look at the cocktail list and you can ask for specific things. Same way we would say, you can ask for a meal cooked without oil. You can ask for dressing on the side or sauce on the side with something. You can ask for no simple syrup in a drink. I've done that with mojitos before. I would say now that you brought it up, I have thought about this, but I've never implemented it. But basically the same idea with the Mios. They make little like stevia or sweeteners, unflavored sweeteners with that. So you could literally ask for, say, a mojito with no simple syrup, no sugar added. Get that. It's going to be super bitter, and just squirt that in, like the liquid stevia stuff, like, and then sweeten it yourself. Like that would be amazing, right? You've added 0 calories and it tastes exactly the same. So maybe you can hack it that way. Or if you don't mind it just being like a little bland, then you can have it without sugar. But most drinks you can ask for that. And I know at most restaurants you can ask for skinny margaritas, and most places will have it.
Yeah. So I am such a mom. Like, I always have snacks in my purse, and I always have stevia packets, because when I go to Starbucks, I'll ask for a bunch. So I always have stevia packets with me. But yeah, I don't feel like I drink out enough to do the Mios. But that would definitely be something if I was like back in my 20s and I was going out at bars and not having a baby at home, then that's what I would do. But yeah, so I feel like the other thing you can do is kind of like what Marissa's saying. If you order a Long Island iced tea and you get into MyFitnessPal, it's the same thing that we talk about. If you go out to a restaurant and you order a burger and it's not on the menu, like you can overestimate and you can do something a little bit on the higher side if you want to be cautious, or you can find something kind of like right in the middle. Like, well, I've seen some things that are 200 calories. I see some things that are 600 calories. So maybe I'll just settle and do 4. So that's just kind of like a easy rule of thumb.
Yeah. Yeah. And it'll also depend on your goals too, right? So if you're
Right.
just trying to stay accountable for your drinking, maybe you're a little bit looser with those estimates and less, overzealous with overestimating. Or, you could look at that the other way. And if you're dieting, maybe overestimate more, right? Because it's better to be safe than sorry and just kind of like cover your bases there. It might suck in the moment, but hey, it'll be worth it when you get to your goal faster. So
Yeah.
kind of just context dependent as always as well.
Yeah. And another thing, and I feel like this is taking it like maybe one step further, but let's say you are in a fat loss phase, and you have like a wedding coming up or something, and it's like a really big event, and you want to be able to let loose and have fun. Like maybe it's like people that you haven't seen from college, and instead of just being like, well, screw it, like I'm just gonna like over drink or get hammered and whatever. Maybe, I mean, maybe kind of like work that into your macros. So maybe that week you lower your carbs a little bit and you give yourself a little bit more wiggle room on the weekend. And so when you have that event, yeah, maybe like you go a little bit overboard, but you've also kind of built it into your week to give yourself that extra like space and fun. And should you do that every single weekend so you can binge drink? No, probably not. That's not what we're saying, but like, it's just kind of, I feel like most people will say like, I can't diet because I have like events, I have parties, or I have a wedding to go to. Therefore that one event is the reason they can't diet. So it's like, you can kind of work around it and still be able to maybe even just take a day off and then just get right back to it.
Yeah. Another thing I'll say is you can also zoom out on your weeks of the month, right? So you might have 4 or 5 weekends in a month, and maybe your typical weekend is you drink a couple drinks. What does that add up to over the course of a month? Maybe that's 8, 9 drinks, right? What if there's something that's really that important to you that you want to prioritize drinking a lot for whatever reason? You can plan like macro scale of like, I'm going to only have 1 drink the other weekends so that I can add that extra drink that I'm not having onto that one day. And then by the end of the month, I'll have all these, like kind of like a credit system, right? Like you almost
Yeah.
like don't use your allotted thing so that credit like rolls over and builds up and builds up. And then you can use it all at once at a later point. So like PTO or something.
Yeah. So hopefully at the end of this episode, you're not like, oh, okay, Christina and Marissa taught me how to binge drink.
Oh my God.
That's not what we're encouraging at all by any means. I mean, we spoke in the beginning about like all the negative effects of alcohol, but like alcohol is fun, right? Like at the end of the
Part
day,
of
like
life
it's,
for a lot
yeah,
of people.
yeah. And it's like a part of celebrations and like being able to enjoy that with friends and family. So we're not encouraging binge drinking, but we're just saying like, if you have an event or you have a couple different events, if you don't have to lose sight of your bigger picture and your health and fitness goals because of those couple different things that you want to go to and enjoy and have fun at.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have anything else that you want to add?
No, I think we're about to set a record
For the shortest podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought we could do it in 30, but 38 is still pretty good.
We're
Although
getting there. We're getting there.
yeah. So guys, we hope that you enjoyed this episode. We hope that you got something out of it and you feel like you can take away and make some changes for the summer. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. You can find both of us on Instagram. You can find me at Chrissy Lynn Fit. Marissa is at Marissa Roy Fitness. Thank you guys so much for listening. Have fun this summer, and we hope to see you back next week.